Alright, so we're going to record this Vox amp with two microphones, an SM57 and a Royer 101 ribbon.
Awesome.
So what I like to do is use my iPhone and get the flashlight. And it's pretty bright in here, but you probably won't see it on the camera, but I just look for where the center of the woofer is and where the edge of the dust cover, which is that little bubble in the center. And what I like to do is I like to put the ribbon, which is traditionally ribbons are darker microphones. I'll put that dead center because that's where the brightest sound of a speaker is. It's dead center. And then where the dust cover meets the rest of the woofer is where I'll put the 57.
All right.
We get real close to the grill cloth, about an inch away. What I like to do is line up the diaphragm of the 57, which is about a 1/4 inch into the plastic, maybe a little less. I try to line that up to where I think the middle of the ribbon is. That way they're perfectly in phase and they're right next to each other, but not touching, and that way they kind of act like one microphone, and we can just turn the faders up and down, acting like an EQ almost. So the brighter 57 and the darker Royer, we can balance with the faders.
Awesome. For
how bright we want the guitar. So that's probably pretty good.
Did you set up the amp settings, or?
We let
Or you did?
let the guitar player do that.
Between the two of us.
The volume is pretty maxed out. It sounded pretty cool before. But yeah. Let's go in the control room and see.
I just wanted to see your gear first. Like, what are you using here for this song?
I have all these pedals, but the only two I'm actually using is this compression sustainer by Boss, the CS3.
Are you using it for any specific parts?
With this guitar and kind of the setup, the sound that I want, it lets me have a line level signal coming from the guitar, regardless of where the volume's at, so I can actually change how the guitar sounds. So I pretty much always leave it on. With the level, everything kind of 12 o'clock except the tone. This is kind of a bright guitar, so I turn the tone down on the compressor. The distortion pedal I'm using is this OCD, the full tone OCD pedal.
Awesome. I've never heard that.
Yeah, it's pretty gnarly, kind of a throaty drive pedal, and it works really well with this amp and guitar setup. So.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, then that's the only two pedals I'm using. Everything else I'm just letting bypass through.
And you're using your neck pickup, right?
No, I was messing around earlier.
You're messing around?
For this song, I'm going to be using pretty much only the bridge pickup.
Okay, that's really important to me as a guitarist. It's just because it really changes the sound of everything else. Like, even the amp sounds like a different amp. Yeah. Cool.
I'm going to take our room mic and turn it around that we had for the drums.
Yeah.
Just so I can hear Ryan talk to me.
Oh, cool.
Cool.
Awesome.
All right, well, let's see what our two microphones sound like. I'm bringing the mics in on the API, and then they're going to two auxes, and my two auxes, I'm busing to one track, so I'm not I'm not going to record the mics separate. I'm going to go ahead and commit them once I balance them. And let's see what we got. All right, Ryan, go ahead and play when you're ready. So here's our 57, definitely a bright sound.
Definitely. That's my go-to answer.
The Royer is actually fairly bright too. I've never used the 101. I'm used to using the 121, which is definitely a darker mic. So maybe that's the difference here today. Hey Ryan, can you warm up the tone a little bit on the amp with the top cut? It's pretty bright. So we're gonna have Ryan make an amp adjustment. Yeah. That sounds pretty good. We haven't done any EQ or compression. Probably save that for the mix. It's a great tone. Distortion is kind of compression already, so we don't really have to worry about him being too dynamic and levels jumping over. Pretty much what we have set now, it'll stay that way. So later on, if we want to dial in some compression with plugins or hardware, I'll use a plugin for now, and I put a little verb in there for his headphones.
So does the guitar player's pedal ever, do their settings ever conflict with things for you, or do you kind of just trust them on what they're gonna, like their pedal board settings? Do you just kind of tend to trust them on the sound they like?
If once we hear it with the track, if it's too he's got a fairly distorted tone. If it's too distorted for the vibe of the song, we might ask them to dial some distortion back or something. But
cool. So you'll like give input for sure. You definitely you'll give input if you think it's needed, but otherwise.
And I tend to, the effect pedals that are just plain reverb and plain delay, we tend to turn those off and put them on in the mix, unless they're just so characteristic that we want to capture that vibe. But if it's just regular reverb, we usually don't use those pedals. We cut the signal dry, that way we can decide what the reverb is later in the mix.
Sure.
Because right now we have 3 instruments, drums, bass, and guitar, so it could sound way different, 10 overdubs from now.
Cool.